Good morning, everybody, and good morning again to those of you who've been very patiently waiting on the line. This is Jackie Hay from Creative New Zealand. I'd like to welcome you to the second webinar in our 2013 series. So today we're going to be talking about a really fabulous and fascinating subject, creating digital content on a shoestring. And I'm very excited that we've got three guest presenters today. We'll obviously also have Vicki Allpress Hill, who is our regular presenter in the webinar series, and most of you will know Vicki. She is the director of the Audience Connection and one of the leading arts marketers in our country, so we're very happy to have her running the webinar series. But today it's also really exciting because we've got a number of experts who are going to share some case studies with us during the time of the webinar. So our first guest presenter is Oliver Seeley, who is the channel manager at TVNZU, and he's going to join us to give us a content producer's viewpoint about how to get started with creating digital content, so that's really exciting. We've also got Candice de Villiers, who's the marketing and comms assistant at Chamber Music New Zealand, and she's going to talk to us today about how Chamber Music New Zealand created their blog practically on a shoestring, and they used it to achieve very, very specific audience development objectives. We also have Lauren Whitney, who is the Marketing and Sponsorship Manager for the New Zealand Comedy Trust and New Zealand International Comedy Festival. We're very happy and appreciative to have Lauren here today because they are very, very busy right now, and she's going to present a case study on developing video, which she actually produced yesterday in the lead up to their massive go on sale this morning. So all going well with the on sale, Lauren will also be here to answer some of your questions later on. So I'm going to hand over to Vicki in the first instance, and we'll break for questions at some point, and then we'll have questions at the end. But if you'd like to ask your questions as we go, please do feel free to type them in the Q&A box. Don't type them in the chat box, and just make sure that you send them to everybody so we can all see. Great, and I'll hand over to Vicki now. Good morning, Vicki.
Good morning, Jackie. I'm just checking you can all hear me.
I can hear you.
Great. I presume everyone can. Welcome, everyone, and hi. I'm sitting here with Oliver Seeley from TVNZU, and we have our other guest speakers on the line. Just moving right through. Just trying to move the slide. Just bear with me. Okay, so today's webinar is going to break into two main sections. The first is Oliver and I talking about digital content, why it's important, and Oliver talking from a producer's perspective about digital content. And our second section, we are featuring two case studies from Chamber Music New Zealand and the New Zealand International Comedy Festival. So the reason we've chosen to talk about content is because content has become really, really important. So this is a couple of things have caused this. Mobile devices, for example, and how easy it is now to consume content online, and things like search engines starting to really prioritise visual content and sort of put that higher up the rankings. So these changes in consumption and the changes in the search engine behaviour mean that content is really critical for us as a marketing tool. However, as we know, content has always been a huge opportunity for arts organisations. We have a lot of beautiful content, interesting content, fascinating content, behind the scenes content. It's a big opportunity for us to engage further with audiences. So what is digital content and why is it important to us? So digital content is any content that is published or distributed in a digital form. So it can be text, data, sound, photographs and images, video, software, etc. What we're really focusing on today is the content that you can create in electronic form and publish or distribute via the online channels available to you, such as your website, email, social media channels and other digital channels, YouTube, Vimeo, and wider online networks. So generally speaking, there are four sources of content. So the first is content that you create yourself, that's original to you. The second is content that you repurpose. So you're taking that original content and you're repurposing it across different formats. So you may have created a video on YouTube, but you take a screenshot of that and use it on Facebook, for example, in its most simple form, or you embed that video into your website. There's also curated content, which is when you are gathering content from other sources and presenting it to your audience. And there's co-created content, which is when your audience actually create the content with you. It's a very quick overview, but you can go and search on those definitions if you want to know a little bit more. So content can be any of these things really, and many, many more. So we think about video, we think about audio, images, but it's blogs, it's white papers, it's things like this webinar. This webinar becomes a piece of content after the fact. It can even be things like collections of links that are useful to your audience. Slideshows, things like that. So a few examples here. This is a video, a very short video that some of us know Sally Woodfield, and she created this during the Real New Zealand Festival of Keisha Castle Hughes, chatting for just, I think it was 9 seconds, and it's got 890 views. It's a very simple piece of video content. Another example is a podcast. So here are some examples of Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra's podcasts, sort of giving behind-the-scenes information about their music and their program. It might be a white paper. So this is Wolf Brown. Some of you know Alan Brown from Wolf Brown. This is PDFs that you can download of white papers and reports. It can be a piece of content that you paste on social media. And it can also be, here's an example of video content being repurposed and embedded into a website. So these are all familiar things to us, but also this is Dance's website, and they present links, a kind of a directory of dance organisations. That is also content. So these are all the sorts of things we're talking about. So content marketing, as you'll see from this graph, has become a top priority for marketers in the sort of wider world now. So we're kind of up against stories being created by commercial organisations as well. And but what's interesting is they face the same sort of challenges that I see arts organisations facing every day. They can't produce enough of it. It's hard to produce engaging content. It's hard to produce a variety of content. There's budget issues, and there's lack of knowledge and resource issues to create content. So these are challenges faced every day by arts organisations, and that's why we've brought in the guest speakers, because they've got a whole lot of tips and tricks for you as to how you can create your own content, as we say, on a shoestring. So I'm going to hand over straight away without further ado to Oliver Seeley from TVNZU, and I'm just passing over the phone right now.
Thank you, Vicki, and thank you to Creative New Zealand for inviting me to speak. So producing digital content, that's something I've been doing now for about 12 years. More specifically, for about the last 5 years, I've been working on TVNZ's digital channels. I've worked on the launch and development of 5 channels, I think, in the last 5 years: TVNZ6, TVNZ7, KidZone 24, Heartland, and I'm currently the acting channel manager of TVNZU. But most of my work has been in the creation of, as a producer, and predominantly working with around the creation of short-form content in order to amplify what it is, amplify our points of difference, and engage new audiences. What I want to talk to you today is the 4 points that I find as a producer I have to drill everything I do down to, even before I start, but also right the way through producing any type of content. Simply defining the content proposition, identifying the assets available to us, considering the format and the style of production and how we want to engage people, and then, of course, how we're going to get it in front of people's eyeballs, distribution or publishing. I'll give you a little bit more detail on each of these. Defining the content proposition, it's really about working out what it is you want the content to do, what is its purpose, and that really could be anything from selling tickets, educating an audience about your particular, about a certain aspect of what it is you're trying to communicate. Are you trying to raise money, perhaps? In which case, is this video going to speak to a very small, specific audience? And, you know, maybe it's just trying to gather fans, likes, or followers. There's really any number of things. So in considering that, you have to think, what is the takeaway message that you want people engaging with this content to leave with? And how does that align with your creative vision, or if you're from a larger organization, your overall business plan? Really, though, the key point that you want to be considering is, why will people want to view or engage with it? And 9 times out of 10, I can say it'll be because your content is telling or showing them something that they can't see anywhere else, or it is entertaining. 9 times out of 10, it'll come down to those 2 factors, and everything else generally will either turn people off or take up their time unnecessarily. So point number 2, identifying your assets. We say this a lot around TVNZ. We've got to stick to our knitting. That's what we say. It's very easy when venturing into different types of media to want to be everything to everyone and trying to do more than what we're actually capable of, or more than where our expertise lie. So I would say, look at what your craft is. What do you do best, and what do you have access to? If it's brilliant dancers, use brilliant dancers. If it's something video-based, then fantastic, it's video. If it's photos, you know, think about these as your assets and use them. On top of that, what rights do you own or can you leverage? Rights is a very big issue in digital media. You have to be very respectful, especially given most of you are representatives from arts organizations. You have to be very respectful of people's rights and make sure you're not using them, not misusing them. In saying that also, I would say, regardless of whether you're making any digital content right now or planning to in the future, when other people are doing press about any of your organizations, make sure that you're retaining the rights, you know, agreeing to interviews on the proviso that you can then host it or use it to recut in other videos on your other site, etc., that sort of thing. The third point is format and style of production. My top point, simplify, simplify, simplify. When you think about where this content is going to sit, how people are going to come across it, and what they will be doing when they come across it. Myself, I predominantly work in video, and thinking about short-form content that will likely live on the web. They're either going to come across it in the context of a website. They're going to be pointed to it out of a social network. Maybe they'll be watching it on one of the many video hosting sites, maybe not. But that brings with it a number of advantages. You don't have to make giant, huge productions. For me, it's like if there was, if we were working with a dance company, for instance, and we knew the dancers were going to be drilling something, you know, something quite spectacular, like the show, you know, something close to the show-stopping end in a rehearsal one day. Simply going down with a phone camera and recording that in a way that works, and just that 20 seconds of video, that could be a very engaging piece of content. It's probably not something that you would want to align with the qualities of your particular, of the product you're trying to sell. So you might not host that on your website, but maybe that's something you push out to the Twitter followers, or maybe you give that to somebody else with a number of Twitter followers to push out on your behalf. I would say use the environment. Don't overthink digital content. Make sure you're using things like the text on the site accompanying your content carefully. And I'd say sound is very important if you are going with video. Sound is extremely important. A viewer will not forgive bad sound, regardless how good the pictures are. They will, however, forgive bad pictures if the sound is really clear and easy to understand. I've got some examples. The links are there for you guys to check out at your own pace, but just briefly, some interesting examples I've seen over the last few while. On The Guardian, they have these fantastic audio slideshows. You know, their business is photojournalism. They do that extremely well. They take these, they put these into slideshows, which you hit play on, and underneath them is an interview with either a journalist or the photographer themselves talking about what is in the photos. Phenomenally engaging piece of content. Another point from the Arts Foundation, this is something we actually made at TVNZ7. I didn't make this one specifically myself, but it was made by a single producer named Kelly Hunt. He shot, sourced all the material, and edited them all together. And it wasn't enormously expensive at all. And again, largely it was about utilizing the rights to content, to already existing content, and repurposing that in an original way. Check those out. This is the artist series for the Arts Foundation. Very interesting. And this one here, just to make you kind of sick with envy of what can be done if you're really willing to invest in this space, is Sadler's Wells, London Dance House. They have a phenomenal amount of content, which is all really beautifully produced, and it works extremely well for them, but that's also partly because of their particular craft. They have a very wide, broad audience for what it is that they want to communicate as well. And so the fourth point to consider is distribution. I'd say within that, timing is extremely important. You need to plan your content's lifespan. What do you want it to coincide with? When do you want people to interact with it? You know, again, if your aim is selling tickets, then you know you want people to be hitting this video at the same time that they're considering buying a ticket or something like that. Think about exclusivity. Does your content hold value to somebody else with a greater ability to distribute it? Certainly the Herald is doing all sorts of things in video these days, and you can see it. They're sourcing the video that they have on their site from all number of places. Engage those people. You might be surprised by the conversations you'd have. Hosting a video, again, it's a no-brainer for me. It doesn't really matter where you host it these days. It's more about how you promote it. And you know, you hear people talk about the importance of social networks, but in terms of engaging people with content, the way people are coming across that content now is social networking is becoming even more important. Direct mail, I think, is something that people need to consider more, and again, media partnerships where possible. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That'd be the 4 points that I would say would be worth holding yourself to. And happy to take some questions about that if necessary.
Hi everyone. I see there's a question from Nicole. And I understand, Nicole, you're from Venture Southland about what is a white paper. I'm just trying to find an official definition, but my understanding, a white paper is kind of a document. I don't know the official thing. I think it's more of a government thing. But generally, if a research company produces a report, for example, or some sort of software company produces some sort of document with case studies and things, it's kind of produced as a PDF and called a white paper. So really, it's just a report or a piece of documentation that is often used to promote the services of a company. So if you ever do Google searches on things like, I don't know, you might be searching on things like, you know, well, how to create content, how to create digital content. You'll often find certain white papers produced or documents produced, reports and things, but subtly they're promoting the services of the company who does create the content. So it's kind of a great marketing tool for businesses. So if you're a business or a sort of commercial organisation doing B2B, white papers can be great content. Okay, so I am going to pass that to Ollie because there's now questions for him.
I should have expected this question from Christine O'Brien when you say not very much cost in relation to the Arts Foundation Paddington clip, for example. What sort of ballpark figure are we talking about? Again, that was made for TV and, by TVNZ as part of a relationship with the Arts Foundation. So I can't say exactly how much that is at this stage. Although it was made for TVNZ7, which is public money. So I'm not sure exactly. I would have to double check. I think if I was to produce that clip myself, which I could from start to finish, I would be able to produce it over 2 days, plus probably an extra day of research, including the transfers. A clip like that would be able to be made, again, if you held some of the key skills internally, probably around $1,500, I think. This is assuming you're engaging somebody who's going to be shooting the interview, editing the clip, and presenting you the final version. But yeah, so again, that can be a lot of money. At the same time, it's not a lot of money sometimes if you feel, so depending on what it is you're hoping to get out of that clip, I suppose.
Jackie, Vicki here. Are you there? Jackie's gone again. We don't seem to have any.
Sorry.
Oh, great. No, that's okay. We don't seem to have any more burning questions yet, but I know there's going to be quite a few at the end because that normally happens. So I wonder if we'll just keep going with the second half of the webinar. You know, Ollie's not going anywhere yet, so all of our speakers will be available at the end to answer questions. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. And
right.
Thanks so much, Ollie. It's really great to have your expertise as part of the presentation. Thank you.
So without further ado, I'd like to now hand over to Candice de Villiers, who is in Wellington, sitting at her desk, I think, and she is going to talk through a case study of Chamber Music New Zealand, and I won't give too much away. Are you there, Candice, and can I hand over to you?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. As Vicki said, I am from Chamber Music New Zealand, so I am the Marketing and Comms Assistant there. And I just want to say thanks to you, Vicki, and also to Creative New Zealand for letting me present today. So first of all, I just wanted to let you know, well, who we are. Chamber Music New Zealand is the largest presenter of top quality chamber music concerts throughout New Zealand. So we tour international and national chamber musicians, sometimes who are quartets in their own right or who are made up of members of our NZSO or come from overseas. And we tour them around 10 centres, north to south, and we also do regional chamber music concert tours as well. So for us, we have this ongoing challenge because I'm wondering if any of you are sitting there going, well, what is chamber music? And you won't be the only one. According to Creative New Zealand's 2011 Audience Atlas dashboard results, 57% of New Zealanders have absolutely no idea who we are, but not only do they not know who we are as an organisation, they actually have no idea what we do and what Chamber Music New Zealand is. So this has always been a challenge, I think, for Chamber Music New Zealand, and these results didn't necessarily come as any great surprise to us. But we definitely know that we need to be raising awareness and understanding for Chamber Music New Zealand and breaking down assumed barriers of formality and stuffiness in what we do to remain relevant to audiences today and to encourage new audiences to find us. So rising to the challenge for us is really more than just what we present and our concerts, but it's really about fostering the development of the chamber music sector as a whole, both within New Zealand and internationally, but let's just start with New Zealand. Right. So in order to continue to raise this awareness and support the sector, we're always looking for these opportunities, and one came along to us at the beginning of February in the form of the Adam Chamber Music Festival. Now, this is a festival that takes place in Nelson. It only happens once every 2 years, so the last one was back in 2011. Since then, Chamber Music New Zealand has been doing a lot more work online, and we've really been trying to grow our online presence, so the timing of this festival was fantastic. This year's festival. The festival also uses international and local musicians. It's largely run by 2 members of the New Zealand String Quartet, but many other local musicians that tour the circuit. It runs for a finite period, so that's only for 10 days, starting from the very beginning of February. And what we really like, obviously, about this festival is that it's incredibly focused and specific for our art form. It's an entire festival of only chamber music, but because of that, it's chamber music in all of its various forms. So you're not going to be going to a concert every night and it's a string quartet every night. It really shows the variety that is on offer within the art form. And there's a lot of activity going on in that finite period. We're talking more than 28 chamber music events in 10 days. And the other thing that we really loved about this idea, this opportunity, was that we actually don't present this festival. While we know we've worked with a lot of people who run the festival and who perform in the festival, many of them tour with us, this festival is not presented by Chamber Music New Zealand. So it really taking leveraging off this festival was an opportunity for us to open up our scope and to show that we are being supportive of the sector as a whole, not just of our activities within it. So with those two things, over the last 2 years, as I said, we've been constantly looking for manageable and achievable ways to extend our online presence and to really further that audience development. Now, I won't be alone, I imagine, in saying money, time, and human resource all play a huge part in what we can actually take on digitally and in other areas. So for this project, we really looked at what we could use online, and we decided to create a blog. And the reason for that was because we've talked about blogs before, and we haven't yet really dived into the area, so that was one thing. We thought, well, we'd really like to try it. We also like the fact that a blog by its very nature can be more chatty, it can be more informal, compared to, say, our website, if we were going to be posting updates on our website. And it was going to really help to break down that barrier of the perceived formality of chamber music, which was great. We could make it really personable. Again, like I said, by posting it off our website, it was a step removed from our activities and from our organisation directly. So it meant that we were able to be more supportive of the sector and not tied to our activities. The other element was that it was quick, easy, and cheap to set up, which is really important. We've been really, really busy, and so it was nice to know that this was something that could be done easily and quickly in terms of its setup. We didn't have to outsource. And design for us wasn't nearly as important as content. I mean, you can spend ages, making something look flash and designing it up really beautifully. And if we'd had the time, of course, we may have wanted to. But really, content was key. And so just getting something up there that looked good in an afternoon was really important, and a blog helped us to do that. And the other thing that was great about a blog was going into the festival, we didn't really know what kind of content we were going to come away with. Was it going to be some video content of vox pops? Were we going to come away with a lot of photos? Was it going to be primarily text-based? And so the nice thing about a blog is that it really allows you to share multiple types of content, video, audio. We shared some SoundCloud clips as well as pictures and, of course, text. So in summary, the festival gave us a really clear and finite purpose for this blog, and for us, a great way to trial the blogging in a manageable way. And so we created the 10 Days of Chamber Music blog with our challenge and opportunity and digital channel decided. This is a screenshot of the home page, you can see, and at the moment, because obviously the 10 days are finished, it starts with the wrap-up, but it goes in backwards chronological order on the home page as a sort of summary of each of the posts. Now, the blog itself is called 10 Days of Chamber Music, but if you have a look at the URL, it's www.chambermusicinz.wordpress.co.nz. And when I was having to set up the blog, it was really important for me to think about longevity and the future of our blog. I wanted to make sure that I didn't make it too anchored in the name of the blog, 10 Days of Chamber Music, because this way, if it was a success and we did want to morph the purpose of the blog, we'd be able to take advantage of any momentum in the followers we've already gathered. So we can still use chambermusicinz.wordpress.co.nz and adapt the blog to suit future projects, which was really important for us. The other thing on the blog that was really important was transparency. So we had 2 pages that I created, and you'll see them there on the right-hand side. What is this blog and who is writing this blog, and also up the top there, because we wanted to be clear about the fact that this was a Chamber Music New Zealand was writing this blog, but also clear about its purpose, that it wasn't about us promoting our events, but more about us celebrating the events of the Adam Chamber Music Festival. So the process. Well, originally we actually began discussing the idea of a blog back in November 2012, specifically associated with the Adam Chamber Music Festival. And the plan had been to send our artistic development manager to Nelson for the full 10 days. She was going to attend as many of the concerts as she could. She was going to personally write the blog. It would have been all within our control. And we would have known that exactly what she was posting, and it would have, well, we thought it was going to be very easy. But cost resource and timing didn't allow. Things came up and we weren't able to send her down to Nelson. So at that point, we sort of had to throw everything back in the pot, and our shoestring blog project, which we had no budget for, got very much shoestringier. And so at that point, collaboration very much became the key. We, first of all, ensured that the festival organisers were on board with our project, and they really, really were. It meant that they posted a link on their website saying that our blog was where you could follow all of the day-to-day updates of what was happening in the festival. They emailed all of their audiences and all of their ticket buyers and the people on their mailing lists to let them know about our blog. So that was a great way of raising our personal awareness and spreading the word about the blog. And then we had to organise the contributors, seeing as our main contributor was now no longer able to go to Nelson. And so we had to reach out to our networks. We got our local concert managers connections, specifically our concert manager in Nelson. We also got in touch with the artists who were going to be performing at the festival, and also locals who were either going to be audience members and loved chamber music, or were going to partake in some of the workshops. We ended up having two main contributors who contributed under a pseudonym, and they blogged for us actually more than once a day. But in total, we ended up having 8 different people writing posts, which ended up being great. So in order to then manage these 8 different contributors, we created a loose timetable looking at the different events that were going to be happening, saying who would contribute, what they would contribute about, and giving them basic instructions about tone and content. But it wasn't about being restrictive, those instructions. It was more about being suggestive, so encouraging them to write from a real personal point of view. It wasn't just necessarily about the factual, informational goings-on of the festival and the event, but we wanted them to talk about the weather. We wanted them to talk about the festival nature and the energy that was happening within Nelson, the behind-the-scenes stuff, and really encourage them to share as much rich content in terms of photos and audio as that they could. And then, actually, just to touch on that, the loose timetable, we only ever wanted, what we wanted to aim for was 1 blog post a day. So in our 10 Days of Chamber Music blog, we ended up having a total of 25 posts over 10 days. So we exceeded that, which was absolutely fantastic. And the next step, once we had all of our contributors and our timetable, was to actually build the blog itself. And I did that myself. I used a free blogging platform, WordPress. The only reason I chose WordPress over any other blogging platform was because I had some experience in that previously, and we were very much up against time. And it took me 1 afternoon to set up the blog. I kept it very simple. Obviously, I went back through as we were blogging and, slightly changed categories or tags or things like that. But the overall framework of the blog took me 1 afternoon, very simple. And then during the 10 days itself, every morning, the contributors would email through their content, and I would upload it. Now, blogging platforms can let you have multiple administrators and users who can upload, but for this purpose, because it was such a finite period of time and we had so many contributors, we wanted to make sure that it was within our control. It enabled me to ensure that all of the posts were correctly tagged. It enabled me to maintain overall tone and layout. I could cross-link between posts where relevant, and also link out to external websites like the festival page or the NZ Trio page if they were mentioned, or to our website if it was appropriate. And it also enabled us to give each of the posts some context. So quite often I would introduce the post or introduce the person who had written the post, and then go on to include their post, just to kind of give it an overall narrative, which really, really I think helped. In terms of then distributing the content, we would post about it on our Facebook page. We had a direct link to it from our website, and we also included it in our monthly e-newsletter. And I'll talk about the outcomes of sharing that when I get to the end of the presentation. So, content itself. We started off by putting our 2 cents in worth. So we set the scene. The very first post we put up is the one that you can see here, entitled Putting Music in a Box. And this is something that obviously I mentioned at the beginning, which was making clear what chamber music is, or breaking down the barrier, or raising understanding, I should say, of what chamber music is. So we had our audience development manager, Victoria Dadd, from her point of view, talk about what chamber music is and set the scene for the Adam Chamber Music Festival. And the nice thing is that we got some great feedback and a couple of good comments on this post. The one I've just inserted down the bottom there came from a guy in Canada, and I think he follows the New Zealand String Quartet quite closely. But he just did some really nice things. The opening thing says, "This is a wonderful introduction box for a newcomer to the chamber music world. It's so difficult to describe in words, isn't it?" And at the end he says, "Bravo to your new blog, and I'll be sharing your site with all my Facebook friends. Looking forward to the next entry, Lee from Canada." So that was a great encouragement for us, first post up, and we had such a wonderful comment. The rest of the content, we wanted to make sure that, like I said, it was more than just the music. We wanted behind-the-scenes drama and delight. So day 3 here, I've included a snippet from the post where we talked about a fire that happened in the cathedral. There was an electrical fire. I cringe to admit that I squealed with delight when I got this post because I just thought, oh, how exciting, what a wonderful blog post. Of course, everyone was fine, no one was harmed, the cathedral was absolutely fine, but it did add some drama to it, and it was this post that when I updated and promoted it on Facebook, I actually did paid promotion for it because I thought, you know, it's intriguing, it's interesting, people are going to want to read about a fire in the cathedral and did the festival go on. So that was exciting, and it was mentioned in follow-up posts. We also had multiple perspectives on the same event from real and relatable people. So there on the right-hand side, day 4, there was a professional and amateur workshop. And what we did was we had 2 posts on that day, one from the point of view of one of the amateur musicians taking part in the workshop, and one from the point of view of one of the professionals, who happens to be the Chamber Music New Zealand CEO, Ewan Murdoch, who is a cellist. So he was running, one of the musicians running that workshop, and he also posted. So it was great to get both points of view. And like I mentioned, we made sure we had some direct and candid posts from the musicians themselves. And the one on the left there you can see is Erin Halliard playing Bark by Candlelight, but the great thing I loved was that the fire, the knock-on effect of the fire was that the lights went on in the cathedral when they were rehearsing yet, and so they had to do Bark by iPhone while they were rehearsing so that they could see the music. So just, you know, really relatable things like that, so breaking down those barriers of the formality of what chamber music is and really letting people see behind the scenes what was happening. And now I'm coming to our outcomes. For us, it was never really about massive numbers of people coming to see the blog. It was really about trialing something that we thought would be a great way to, in the future, talk about our art form and talk about what we do. And I think the thing that really struck me most in the outcomes was the collaboration within the sector. The one thing that we were going to do was have one person posting from our organisation, and what ended up happening was that we were collaborating with 8 different people who don't directly necessarily work for Chamber Music New Zealand. So it's been a really invaluable foundation in that sense. But to talk numbers, we have had up till now almost 3,000 views, and the great thing about the blog is that even though the festival is over, the blog itself is going to live on, and we're still getting more views and likes and follows every day. And in terms of on Facebook, we don't have a huge following on Facebook, but we did have over 30 shares and likes on Facebook. And I'll just jump down to the 4th bullet point there. The only money spent, other than obviously our time and human resource on this project, was $21 on Facebook for post promotion. So $21 I think is pretty good and pretty shoestringy. And the other 2 things that have been great in terms of outcome is that we have real staff and team buy-in for the next blog project. So keep an eye out, we're definitely going to be doing more blogging. And of course, we linked back to our website, so we've had an increased number of links to our website and also some traffic coming through from the blog to our website, which is fantastic. So that's it from me. I don't know if anyone's got questions or if we're going to go on to the next presenter, but thanks everyone for your time and for listening and for allowing me to present.
Thank you, Candice. We'll have questions at the end. Thanks for such a useful and successful case study, and a very honest one. I know that many of arts organisations do struggle with how to set up a blog and how to maintain it, so there's some fantastic advice in there. And your point about the number of shares, those 30 shares are a lot of reach on Facebook, and that's one of the importance of one of the important factors about digital content and what it can do for you. If it's eminently shareable, you're going to really increase your visibility and reach online. So our next case study is actually a piece of digital content. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, just ignore this. These were meant to be hidden slides. We sometimes have a little bit of WebEx issue, so just ignore those slides we just flicked through. The next piece of content is a piece of digital content within the digital content, if you know what I mean. So Lauren Whitney from the New Zealand International Comedy Festival is right now in the middle of a major on sale. However, she has managed to join us, we notice. What she has produced for us, not knowing if she could join us, was a piece of video that we're now going to attempt to play. You will need the sound on your computer because it's going to come through your computer rather than the phone. So if you could all sort of make sure your sound is on right now while we flick over to the desktop and give this a shot. So how do I get to my desktop? Here we go, folks. Just bear with me, and just if you could all get your sound going while we do this. Where is my desktop? Jackie, could you advise if you can see my desktop? Or Sabrina? Yeah, great.
Hey Vicki, you can see it.
Fantastic. So just ignore the other stuff on my desktop because I wasn't expecting to do this until the last minute. So here we go. So today we thought of doing a webinar about online content. We tried doing this on video. So we myself on an iPhone 5 and it's the first time I've done this, so let's give it a go. Show you how to check this.
Hi Vicki, would you like me to go over the first part of what I said in that first video?
Hi everyone, we just had news from you all that the sound is not working. So what we're going to do is hand right on over to Lauren. I'm just going to stop sharing my desktop for now, and then Lauren, we're going to have to ask you to talk to this, please. I'm sure you can do that because you've had recent practice producing the video, but we will put the videos up online for you to watch after this. Sabrina will let you know when they're up. Thanks.
Hi there everybody, can you all hear me? Right, okay, so we're going to ad-lib this a little bit. We went on sale this morning for the Comedy Festival, so it's been all quite manic here, but luckily all went well, so I can join you here today. Basically what we did, I'll kind of go through it in 4 stages. The first thing that we had was the challenge. And a lot of what Oliver said at the beginning was really relevant to us, and these are the kind of things that you need to think about when putting together or thinking to put together online content. Basically, what we did was we'd been working quite hard on strategies around Facebook and databasing, and it had some really great success on that. What we wanted to do was to create some online content. We have generally about 200 to 250 performers each year at the Comedy Festival. That's a lot of people that in shows that people haven't kind of heard of before. So we're trying to make it easier all the time in different ways to understand and help people make decisions on what shows to go to. We were finding that a lot of the comedians themselves weren't able to create good quality content that was sort of relevant either to the show that they were doing. It was maybe beyond their kind of capacity technically at that point, or beyond their budget. So what we really wanted to do, and we went to Creative New Zealand with a proposal to do this, was create a whole lot of vignettes or little short online videos that could be used to help get to know the comedian better and also promote their show. Now, overall, we created 37 videos, but before I sort of get into that, what I think is important, and I'll reiterate what Ollie said, was that you need to understand why you're creating the video. Are you doing it to sell tickets? Are you doing it to get to know someone, your arts company better, or people within that? Is it to raise funds, for example, Pledge Me, or is it a sponsorship show reel? And then is it just showcasing what your group does generally? But what you also need to understand kind of what your point of difference is. Why would someone watch that video? Why would they stay watching it for 5 minutes? If they're busy, what is going to be your point of difference? What's going to grab their attention? You need to think about those things and all of those things, and it can be a number of those questions that you're sort of fitting into in your categories. Think about things like, does it have a catchy title? What's the first picture that they see when they land on YouTube? If it's someone like you would have seen on the video before, me in a slightly off pose, is that going to grab someone's attention? Probably not. You might want to try and pick a more flattering image or something to have as your screenshot. So basically, I guess, moving on to the process, what we did was we decided that we were going to make some videos, and we were going to try and use as many comedians as we could that were in the festival. We had a big brainstorm, and we got people in, some comedians in, we got our team in, but we also asked people from outside. We actually asked Ollie from TVNZ, and we got our production company that we work with, Augusto, but we got those guys in to have a chat. Now, often you can get great ideas from people who are outside of your industry or your company, and so it's really good to have their input. They often see things slightly differently from you. They often think outside of the politics of your industry, so it's really cool to bring people in and involve them. And then I guess also you get their buy-in as well for the project, and generally it's more fun. I would suggest in a brainstorm having pizza and drinks, make it exciting, and also be grateful that people are giving you their time. If you've got budget to pay people or give them a contribution or a present, that's fantastic, but often people will just come and help you out, which is really cool. Now, once we'd kind of done the brainstorm process, we had so many amazing ideas, but you really have to narrow them down to something that's going to work and be practical. Now, some of these amazing ideas are brilliant to keep, and they may become bigger, better ideas later on, or they could be something that you could work into a TV series, for example. I'm sure Secret Life of Dancers, for example, started off as a smaller idea and then all of a sudden became this quite big ongoing series. So that's the kind of thing that you can do. So don't get rid of your ideas, store them up, but make sure that you have an idea that you're going to work on that is actually achievable, that you can make simply and within your timeframes and budgets. One of our challenges was that we had to make two kinds of videos, essentially. One, we had a lot of comedians who were here pre-festival, so we had more time. We could use editable clips, we could use multi-cameras, but we also had comedians who were arriving during the festival that we wanted to give the same opportunity to, so we had to come up with a different concept. The first concept we did was a mockumentary-style interview about how comedians prepare for their show. And we had a bunch of questions, and we got David Farrier involved to give it some credibility and some creative kind of flair, I guess. And what we were able to do with that was we were able to give the comedians the same questions, so there was sort of some consistency. They could play around with that how they wanted to. They could really take the piss with it, or they could be more serious. And they could sort of put their twist on it. And that worked really, really well. We filmed that on multiple cameras, and it did have to be edited. And some of them were quite long, and I would suggest that probably Trying to keep videos as short as possible is hugely important if you can. It is hard. It's probably the hardest thing to do. But you can now see with YouTube analytics where people stop watching, and you tend to find that people stop watching sort of 30 seconds to a minute in, well, there's quite a big drop-off after those points. So if you're going to do any videos, and they are longer than that sort of time frame, which most of them will be, make sure you've got something up front that's punchy and engaging. If you're doing comedy, for example, make sure there's something funny in the first 30 seconds. If there's not, you're probably going to lose people. For the second concept, we did a series of videos which were just pieces to cam, so it was one camera, and there was no editing. It was basically what we did was we were the time of your life stories. Now, the reason we sort of went with this concept was because it was you were able to, anyone, I guess any comedian was sort of on the spot able to think of an interesting, engaging story. And when people sort of tell stories about the time of their life, all of a sudden they become very animated. Their face becomes animated. They probably gesticulate a bit more and that sort of thing. So that's what we wanted to capture. And so we did that, and we were able to film them and then cut them just once at the beginning and once at the end, put a graphic on it, and they were out the next day. So that is fantastic. That was a really successful piece of work. Now, I guess in terms of the results, we had a bunch of results actually, and they were all pretty good, which was great. I guess what the thing to think about when you're doing YouTube videos and actually, before I get on to the results, what I will say is actually the key bit, which Ollie went through, is about distribution. You do need to think about where these videos are going to be played. Now, if the plan is just to pop them up on YouTube and put it on your Facebook page, I would suggest that they're not going to get the views that you would ideally want them to get. If you're going to put them up on YouTube, which I suggest is the best place to host them, then make sure you set aside budget, if you can, for a YouTube feature campaign. And this is when you'll see that on YouTube. They'll, it's the video that comes up that says YouTube feature on it, often on your top right. Or it's sort of suggested videos that on that sort of right-hand side panel. And it is hugely important to do that, because people will then discover those videos. Otherwise, to go to your, to go to your channel and then find the video and all that sort of stuff becomes quite a difficult process. So I would strongly recommend that you do a YouTube feature campaign, and that was definitely helped contribute to the success of our campaign. But also, as Ollie mentioned, it's really important to get some media involved if you have those connections. If it goes out, for example, on the Rock FM's website, or it might be on Staff or the Herald or whatever, those sorts of places, or blog sites, you're much more likely for people to see the video. We have found on Facebook that we get particularly good interactions with photos, but with videos, the watching is much less. So if you're sort of putting things solely up on Facebook, that's probably not going to satisfy. In terms of numbers, as I said, we made sort of 37 videos overall. We had, during the festival period, 22,000 views over those videos, and that has since gone up sort of significantly. For example, Guy Williams' video had about 2,800 during the festival views, and then so I looked at it yesterday and it was up to 5,500. So these videos have a life beyond what you're doing, and I guess as Ollie mentioned as well, that's important to think about. If you've got a certain lifetime for this video, you'll need to take it down. But remembering once you've put something up, it does exist. So it is important that, if it really has a time limit on it, that you sort of think of ways to get that off the internet. But there are really cool things that you can do to kind of keep that longevity going. Like, for example, and I haven't done it yet, but the plan is to go through the videos that we did last year. And what you can do is you can change the text underneath the videos on YouTube. So I would suggest changing that text out. You can also load text up on the video so it comes up and a bit like subtitles kind of thing. So you can put messages up. So what I would do, for example, for Guy's show is I would say, Guy's performing in the 2013 festival, this is his show, and you can also link people directly to their sales page. So either the show page on, for example, our website or directly to the ticketing link. So that is a really helpful tip as well, because basically by doing that you're able to send people without sort of jumping through 5 hoops to get to the buying purchase place. You can send them straight where you want to send them, so that's really helpful. The other really good result of this campaign was we're building up an archive of quality content from comedians that we're essentially being able to curate and so maintain that quality. We're also able to provide comedians with really good quality, beautifully filmed pieces for show reels, which really helps in terms of them getting other work, potentially, you know, applying for festivals or tours overseas. I noticed with an artist that we're bringing down from Edinburgh who won a big award in Edinburgh this year for sort of being an up-and-coming comedian, and he's an amazing comedian and he's won all these amazing prizes, so he's blown up hugely kind of worldwide. But you Google his name and these old videos from 2010 filmed on someone's mobile phone with pretty average sound are coming up. So it's really important that when people are Googling, the newest and latest and greatest videos are coming up. So have a think about that as well. I'm aware that I may be sort of running out of time. Vicki, do you want to let me know how we are going there?
So Jackie here, Lauren.
Hi.
Hi. We've got a couple of minutes, and then
sure.
We should probably wrap up, and we've got some questions as well.
Okay, brilliant. All right, I'll just talk a little bit more about the results. YouTube's fantastic now because you can see where your traffic sources are coming from. You can see the age and gender breakdown of your viewers, I guess, and also where they're watching the videos from. What we found really interesting with our videos was that the people that were watching the videos, according to YouTube, were very much in our demographic. It had quite a male skew, which I was slightly surprised about, and it was also older than expected. So, for example, we actually found that most people watching the videos were sort of 25 to 55, which is very much our kind of demographic in terms of who's actually going to the shows and purchasing tickets. For example, our Facebook is a lot younger. We've now got sort of a lot of 13 to 17-year-olds who have sort of joined in over the last sort of 4 months. And so it's interesting that where we're sort of getting younger on Facebook, we're actually maintaining a sort of age on, I guess, age appropriateness in terms of who we're wanting to see that content on YouTube. So that was a really great result. I'd suggest if you have a YouTube channel, or if you don't have one, create one. If you do have one, go and have a look at the analytics and just kind of get lost in there for half an hour and see what you can find out. You tend to find that these things, there's more things that you can see every time you log in. So I'm sure it's changed since I last had a look. But one bit that is quite interesting is looking at when people are kind of watching the videos and then when that's dying off. So I think that's probably the main results for us, but you may have specific questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. And thank you to everybody for your forbearance when we couldn't get the sound. That was really kind. It's somehow absolutely typical that when you are doing a presentation about technology that your technology fails you. But I thought it was great how you made the creation of the content look really easy, but it was the distribution channel that had a glitch.
Yeah, well, and that's always the way, really. You can organise these things perfectly, and often the distribution is what lets it down. So I do recommend that a massive part of creating online content is the distribution, and sort of forgetting, because you can make as much beautiful content as you like, but if no one sees it, then it's kind of irrelevant.
Exactly. So Celia Jenkins has a question for you, Lauren, in particular, and her question is, how much does a YouTube feature campaign cost?
Cool. Well, basically, we spent $5,000 on it, and that was across the videos. I would suggest, it really depends. It was, you can spend a lot less than that. You don't need to spend that kind of money. And if you have, for example, one video or two videos, then you can get probably more bang for your buck in terms of actually pushing it to just one place. But obviously we needed to be fair and try and promote as many comedians as possible, so that's sort of why we did it like that.
Great, and I think what's really wonderful about the work that you do is how you've basically integrated developing video as part of your everyday work. You've just made it part of what you do rather than kind of an added extra, which I think is really impressive. So I'm just wondering if anybody else has any questions, either for Candice or Lauren or Ollie. We kind of need to wrap up quite soon, but if you've got any questions, please do ask them. Type them into the Q&A section. But while you're thinking about your questions, I'll just remind everybody that the next webinar is on the 27th of March, and that's about getting the most out of YouTube, which is obviously highly relevant to this particular audience.
One thing I was going to say, Jackie, that is that Ticketek now has videos available on their show page. So, and this is probably a move that will continue to happen for a lot of ticketing agencies. We also have on our show pages on our website a video as well, or the ability to add video. So that's a really great place. You can use it as a trailer for selling shows. And as we've seen, kind of obviously with movies, trailers are what sells, gets people along to the movies, or Bradley Cooper and trailers. So if you use those, utilize those kind of options as well, and think about that in terms of a distribution channel.
That's a really great idea and fantastic advice. So just, we probably need to finish pretty soon. Does anyone have any last minute questions for anybody on the panel? I think possibly we don't, but just in case somebody does have that one burning question, I'd just like to let everybody know, a reminder that our digital marketing workshops are coming up in March, the 20th of March in Auckland and the 22nd of March in Wellington. So that will be a full-day intensive potpourri of stimulating content around digital marketing. We've got quite an exciting keynote speaker lined up, and hopefully we'll be letting you know about that very soon. And we'll be featuring local case studies. We'll be looking at digital trends you can't ignore, and we'll have an expert panel to answer some of your burning questions about digital issues. So if nobody has any questions, and it looks like you don't, I'll just hand over to Vicki if you've got any last minute things to say.
No, Jackie, I just wanted to thank very much our guest speakers, Ollie, Candice and Lauren. It's quite, nerve-wracking to present case studies, and they did really well. Apologies again, everyone, for the video issues, but you will be able to watch the videos in the next few days, so you can recap on what Lauren was saying, and at least you know what Lauren looks like, even if you couldn't hear her. So just a big thank you to everyone for coming along and being part of our community, as always.
That's great. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great